Hello, I am James Waide, a first-year creative writing and philosophy student. This is a story that I wrote approximately 1 month ago with itching fingers and mind. It came out in 2 fluid writing sessions across one evening, separated by a cigarette break. The version that I will present now has received next to no editing since then. It is up to you to decide whether the story would have benefited from editing or not. The story is the account of one man's morning, centered around the actions of his dog. I would advise against believing anything that the man says. I am not even sure if he really has a dog. This is a corrupted mess of words from a corrupted mess of a man. You may do what you want with him, and you may do what you want with the story, in the same way that the man does what he wants with his dog. The story is entitled, The Dog. The dog woke up this morning. I know this because if he hadn't woken up, then he would still be asleep or he would be dead. Of course, he could be dead, but still have managed to wake up this morning, if the death had occurred some time after waking up. Hold your horses. The dog isn't dead. Well, not yet anyway. Not as far as I'm aware. The dog, I'll repeat, the dog woke up this morning. What next? And his woman was gone? Is that what comes next? Well, what would the dog be doing with a woman in the first place? Could be a dog woman, more commonly known as a bitch. Could be. Could be. No. The dog doesn't have a woman of any kind. He only ever leaves the house with me, and I don't let him near any dog women. The dog doesn't have any balls, so if he did get near some dog women, then it wouldn't make a difference to him. He wouldn't care. No balls, no sex drive. No, the idea that the dog would wake up on this or any other morning to find that his woman was gone would be completely preposterous on this or any other. Now hang on. I already said that. Well. The dog woke up this morning. That's how I started. Oh yes, the dog most definitely woke up this morning, woke up before I did, went into the kitchen via the door that I had foolishly left open all night, and helped himself to whatever food he could find in the low-lying cupboards. He raided me, completely. Nothing left, no siree, those cupboards were empty except for all the inedible stuff. So now, I've got no cornflakes, but I've still got all my soap powder. Well, I had to smoke a cigarette to get over it, is what I did. Went out into the garden. Well, no, I'll start at the beginning. After the dog woke up and ate all the food from the low-lying cupboards and left me with nothing but soap powder and sponges and I wanted to smoke a cigarette, well, I had to go to the shop to buy some cigarettes because I hadn't smoked in 15 years at this stage, not since Nancy passed. So I went to the shop to buy some. Just down the hill it was. Not too far. But it can seem like too far sometimes. Like in the winter when it freezes over and a man can, or a woman, but I'm a man, so I'll say that a man can slide all the way down on his backside if he feels like it. Or if he falls down. We don't all slide down the ice for the fun of it. Oh no, that is one long hill in the winter, and climbing back up, that climb is difficult in the best of times. Well, not when it's warm, just when it's icy to be honest. But anyway, it's difficult to climb up in the winter when it's icy. So I tend to just take it slow, one step at a time, not afraid to take a step back if it seems like it will help me take a step forwards. So the dog got up this morning and ate all the food in my low-lying cupboards, and I wanted to smoke a cigarette just to get over the shock, but since I hadn't smoked in the 15 years since Nancy's passing, I had to go down the hill to the shop to buy some cigarettes so that I could smoke one in the garden. Well, we haven't really gotten there yet, but I did smoke it in the garden. And the young Asian man within the shop selling cigarettes. That's not all they sell. They sell other things too. I've never seen a shop that only sells cigarettes, and frankly, I find the idea of such a shop completely preposterous. So, I went to the counter and asked him for 10 Benson & Hedges. That's the brand I used to smoke before Nancy's passing. And he, get this, He asked me for ID. Well, I laughed and said, "You're flattering me, young man." And he didn't laugh. Turns out he wasn't flattering me. He really did want to see my ID. I explained to him about the dog and the food from the low-lying cupboards, but he didn't want to hear. So I pulled it out from my pocket and held it up to him and said, "Here's my ID, young man." Well, he gave me the cigarettes very quickly after that. He didn't look too pleased about the situation. So I climbed back up the hill, not icy, thankfully, and got back to the house where the dog was still awake. And I went out into the garden, I already told you about this bit, and I lit up a cigarette using the box of matches that I keep in the kitchen drawer. I took the dog outside with me, thought I would teach him a lesson while I smoked, him having eaten all the food. I just smoked while I tried to think of a good lesson to teach the dog. My God, how good the cigarette was. Haven't known bliss like it since Polly died. She was the smoker, you see. I only ever smoked with her occasionally. I finished the cigarette before I could think of anything, so I just decided to stub it out on the dog as substitute for proper punishment. Then, for good measure, I undid my fly and pulled out my equipment and pissed on him. Well, I started pissing, but he ran away, so I stopped. It was difficult holding back the flow, like trying to hold back the walls of Jericho. No, I don't think that's an expression. Well, I can't think of a suitable simile, but I held it back anyhow and then put it away and did up my fly, then went to fetch the dog's lead. I couldn't find it at first, because for the life of me, I just could not remember where I had put it. I went through the whole cupboard, which is where it should have been, but I find that I never find things where they should be. The lead was, in fact, next to the telephone in the living room, which I discovered after I had searched the hall cupboard and the bedroom. It wasn't in the bedroom, but I looked there anyway, because at that moment I didn't actually know where the lead was. After I found it next to the telephone, on the table in the living room, I took it back outside and attached it to the dog. Well, I attached it to the dog's collar. The dog himself didn't have a suitable place to attach the lead. No, they don't come equipped with such loops. You have to buy them separately. I attached it to the dog's collar, and then I attached the other end to the drain pipe, ensuring that the dog had a very limited scope for movement. In fact, if I stood carefully between the house and the fence, with the dog and the drain pipe in the corner, then his scope for movement was limited much more, unless he were to make a dash past me through the open space, but then he would just be held back by the lead anyway. See? I had thought this through when I tied him to the drain pipe. Having secured him in this position, I undid my fly again, pulled out my stuff, and resumed my interrupted urination. He didn't run for it this time, just held his head low and let my piss run over him. Some people might say that you shouldn't do such things to a dog. Well, he ate all the food from my low-lying cupboards, and I had to teach him a lesson. He shouldn't be doing that again now, should he? I'm going to have to replace all that food. The cornflakes, the biscuits, the other stuff. I can't even remember what was in there. I went back inside, leaving the dog tied up. I didn't want him running around inside and getting piss everywhere. There was a loud knocking at the door. Really loud. Persistent. It was loud and it didn't stop. So I went to the door and there were these policemen there. Well, I say policemen, but one of them was a woman, saying that they'd had a report that I had used a weapon to hold up a shop. They said that I'd pulled a knife on the young Asian man down in the shop, down the hill, in order to steal cigarettes. Well, I tried to explain to them about the ID and how I really needed cigarettes because of the dog eating the food, etc., but they just didn't listen. No, they put me in handcuffs and searched me. They found the knife in my pocket. It was still there. In a scabbard, of course, but that doesn't count for anything these days. They shoved me in the car and said that they would be coming back later to search the house. Well, I found myself thinking, I'm glad Daisy's dead, because she would not like this one bit if she could see it. I don't know. Maybe I should have known what to expect when I saw what the dog had done this morning. Maybe if I had caught it then and just gone back to sleep, I could have saved myself a lot of trouble. They'll find the dog, of course, when they go back to search the house. Probably let him go from the drain pipe. How old is that dog now? Too old for a new owner, I'll wager. Well, there's something. At least the dog won't be getting it any easier than me.